We're standing above our blocks of Cerise. Right behind me is block 1, the first block we started working with, and of course it wasn't planted at that time. It was bare land. In 1996, I met a gentleman named Lindsay Jones, who said he had a property above Boonville on the side of the hill, ranging between about 400 and 1,000 feet in elevation. And was I interested in potentially purchasing grapes? I said, sure, I'd be happy to talk to you and visit. And so I met Lindsay, and he said, well, where do we begin? I've got 160 acres, it's hillside, it's rough country. How do you want to start? And I said to him, well, why don't we go visit your rockiest, most difficult piece of land? And this is where he brought me, right where we're standing, and said to me, this is it. And I walked around the block behind me and kicked the dirt and said, it's perfect, let's plant it. This would have been the very first planting we did in which it was a by the acre planting contract. So we specified row direction, rootstock. We grabbed the clones. The clones came from 1 acre, which was really fun. Well, not all of them, but we selected from 1 acre a selection called David Bruce, which some people called a Romane Conti clone, which had originally come from the Santa Cruz Mountains and had been a suitcase importation many years ago, and brought that down here along with some Dijon clones, 777, and a couple of clones from our friends at Archery Summit when Gary Andrus was running Archery Summit. 2 selections from there that we've worked with ever since. So there's a real family path here from 1 acre to Cerise to Mays Canyon, in which in each place we've reselected the best of the budwood to try to work with it in future plantings.
Our team, our senior leadership team, gave me the booklet and said, go take a look at this vineyard and see what you think. I said, okay, I'll go check it out tomorrow. I came back that day, and that afternoon I met with the CFO at the time and said, this place is incredible. I said, this is the first vineyard. I had looked at 20, 30 vineyards beforehand for us to purchase all over Sonoma County, and I didn't find anything that I really liked. And I came up here and I said, God, this is magical. We have to buy this.
Makes sense. This is it.
We have to buy it. Yeah. And so I told my CFO that, and he said, do you think we can make world-class wines from here? I said, yeah. It's inevitable what we can make.
You will make
world-class wines from this vineyard.
That's so cool.
Yeah. You just knew it right when you walked around this site.
Yeah, you're like, nope, no problem.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
Behind me, as I look at it, and one of the things that really interested me personally in this site is, for us, the section of Cerise, is there's a real sense of unity to this. So directly below us is block 1, again a very romantic name, but block 2 is to the right, and then right below block 1, you can see how quickly it falls off, is block 3. So these 3 little blocks nest together, and they have a real sense of one particular part of the property. Because as I alluded to, this is a really scattered property with lots of little soils and exposures, and the rock outcropping that we're standing on is a really good indication of that the rocks in this part of the hillside are often exposed through many generations of erosion. So low vigor, low crop potential, all those things. One of the concerns I had when we started was that you're standing at the Boonville end of Anderson Valley, so the quote-unquote warmer end of Anderson Valley, further from the fog intrusion. And you're also on a very steep hillside, so low vigor, potentially low yields, quite exposed. I was concerned when we did this contract that we would end up picking this like 3 weeks before everything else. We'd be cleaning out the crusher and the destemmer and all our equipment just for Cerise when everything else was 3 weeks away at harvest. And the experience of this site really was informative to me because it was the reminder that you never know. Cerise is not an early site. I was completely wrong. Cerise is a late site. And I think the reason is, and one can kind of get a sense from where we're standing, is that you may be on the side of the hill, but this hill pushes out a little bit into the valley, and we're right in the fog zone, so the cool air zone. So this site tends to want to ripen relatively slowly, and ends up being sort of mid to late pack in terms of harvesting dates for us, much later than I thought it would be when we originally started. And it's fascinating because immediately below it on the valley floor is Farrington, which is a well-known vineyard that makes great wine, but is one of the very first sites to be picked in the valley. And yet we're looking from Cerise to Farrington, from one of the later sites to one of the very earliest for Pinot Noir. So to me, when I think of Pinot Noir and Pinot Noir sites, what really excites me is wines that are individual, right? That have a real individual expression of their place. And I think of Cerise as being borderline Pinot. With older wines, sometimes the variety becomes secondary to the aromatic, complexity of the wine. You're no longer thinking Pinot. Is this Pinot, or is this, Pomerol, or is this Nebbiolo? And that's the key to me, is that Cerise is almost Nebbiolo. The tannins are this really fine-grained, sandpapery tannins that are pretty significant, and the aromatics are more dried cherry, almost tobacco sometimes for me. As the wines get older, a little antique drawer, and I love that about it because it's utterly unique, and oftentimes, as you were suggesting a moment ago, in a blind tasting for you and I working, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's Cerise right there, because of that very specificity of the place. And I always wonder why. I mean, we can never put it together, right? I mean, why is that? Why does it taste the way it does?
And one of my favorite things is the proximity to 1 acre and how distinct those two wines are. I mean, you would never confuse those two wines as being the same, though they're less than a mile from each other?
Probably. I mean, certainly as the crow flies,
Yeah.
less than a mile. And yeah, I mean, 1 acre is much lusher and richer. The other thing about Cerise that I think is really distinctive is that in the years where you have a lot of tannin, the wines can be pretty opaque when they're young, meaning that if you're someone who really enjoys fruit and all those kinds of things, it's hard to see past the structure of the wine. But after a couple years, it really transforms, and the hidden richness comes out in the wine in a way that was just not present in the early years. And I really enjoy that too.